Cool. Seems like ages since I've been doing a live, all of about 7 minutes ago. So we're back to talk about two very specific topics. I wanted to do these today while they were still fresh in the media. But before we get into it, my co-host for this particular session, the Inside Man.
Good evening, all. How are we? By the way, congratulations on another fantastic interview there. That was amazing.
Yeah, thanks very much. We could have easily done another hour there.
Oh gosh, yeah. Oh,
yeah, I'd said to Shane we had to keep it to an hour.
Yeah.
You know, if we could.
She's terrific. Really, really good guest.
Yeah, and been in the industry a long time, and we kind of grew up together in the industry. And of course, she was also the casting director on not one but two of my projects that went belly up. So kind of went through all of that with me as well. But talking of other things that have gone belly up, we're gonna get into two fairly topical news stories. I don't do loads of streams like this, but I believe that these ones warrant some discussion. Now, we are going to talk about Kathleen Kennedy, and we're actually going to look back at her career and, talk about the highs and the lows. But before we get into that, there's another topic I wanted to talk about, and that was Voletta Wallace, who also passed away just the other day. Now, for anyone who doesn't know who Voletta Wallace is, she is the mother of the notorious Biggy, or Christopher Wallace, to call him by his correct given name, who was, of course, a rapper from the East Coast. And whilst visiting Los Angeles, attending a party, as he departed the party in the company of P. Diddy, I think it was, a car pulled up alongside his. Somebody fired at the car 6 times. He was struck, I think, 4 times. And was pronounced dead at hospital. Terrible tragedy. He was only, I think, 24 years of age, if I remember rightly. His mother campaigned for years to not only get a proper investigation going, because the investigation was bungled, and but also because the people that were the most likely suspects were, 2 of them worked for the Los Angeles Police Department, which were 2 African American police officers who also worked or moonlighted for Death Row Records, and it's believed that they were involved directly in the murder, and there's a lot of proof to substantiate that. Another theory is that he was set up by P. Diddy to be murdered. That's also possible, because there's evidence about that that's come out recently. Yeah. Hi, John. Just to address this quickly, mate, we don't allow politics on my channel, and you called my guest a lefty in chat, which is not acceptable. So you just can't make comments like that about the guests when we were doing an industry interview with somebody. So I welcome you on the channel. I appreciate your support, but we don't have guests. We don't have comments like that about the guests. So please understand that. That's just a rule. So yeah, it's really sad that she's passed away, because she spent her whole life you know campaigning for her
Tirelessly campaigning, yeah.
son. Yeah. And so I was quite sad to see that she'd passed away, and I think her death didn't get as widely reported as it could have done, because this happened just a couple of days ago, because of various other things that were happening in the news at the time. So I wanted to talk about it before we got on to Kathleen Kennedy today. So yeah, and one of the films that covers these events, which is available now on Netflix, there is also a drama series which I've also seen, but that's City of Lies with Johnny Depp and Forrest Whitaker. It's not a perfect film by any means, but this is predominantly told in two timelines, and it's about the older and younger version of Johnny Depp trying to solve the case, and also the downfall of his life as a result, and so on. So there we are. Yeah. So I know you've seen the film as well.
Yeah, I mean,
Movie.
it's an interesting film. It is a very interesting film, actually, and I think this is Johnny Depp really acting here. Even if you take out the subject matter, we have to be reminded sometimes of what a very, very good and accomplished actor Johnny Depp really is, and how charismatic he is. But it's it's an interesting beginning, because we get all of the history of it. We get a potted kind of history of the facts. It's very condensed. With all of the news reports and everything of the time, and we're immediately thrown straight into the context of the movie. It was a very, very interesting way of doing it. Yeah, I mean, I hadn't seen it since its release, I think. But you see, I kind of like this sort of music as well. Both East Coast and West Coast. A little bit of a fan, to be honest, but probably due to one of my sons really being into it. But nonetheless, yeah. I mean, I think we both remember the situation at the time. When both murders occurred.
Yeah.
Notorious B.I.G. and Tupac. It was it was a tough time. I mean, nobody was saying anything, nobody knew anything, or at least anybody that did know anything wasn't saying anything. And then, of course, the rumors started to bubble away. And as the years have gone by, we have a bunch of theories, but then we also have some conspiracy theories. Most of the theories seem to be well backed up, I think. And I'm not talking
certainly
conspiracy
concerning
theories.
the three police officers that were
Yeah.
involved in the Rampart scandal, and there were more, of
Mhm.
course, but the
Yeah.
ones who
Yeah.
in particular worked for Death Row Records.
Yeah.
This guy was I forget, I think it's David Mackey was a police officer's name, I think. And he was ID'd as being present at the time with a walkie-talkie on the premises. I mean, we could do another stream about who killed Biggie and Tupac. That would be quite an interesting follow-up to the one where we solved the JFK assassination. Do check that one out. We did solve it. I don't want to get into that now, but this is a film. It's a film worth watching. It's not a perfect film. It's not. It's a good film as opposed to a great film. I think sort of 7 out of 10. It feels like a lot of it was cut from the running time. I suspect there was more. But what I particularly liked was the fact that Voletta played herself.
Yeah.
In the movie, and she played herself in a scene where she said to the cop, Depp's character, "You have nothing to apologize for. You know, you did the best by my son." Now, the reality is that character is dead now. I thought that said so much about the woman.
Yeah,
it really did.
yeah, we did.
You know, Darth Plato says, "A friend of mine was a limo driver. He drove the Tupac family to and from the funeral." God damn.
Wow.
Yeah, I just kind of reading about her as a woman and what she went through with, because at the end of the day, the Los Angeles Police Department were certainly involved. There were, or members of their department were involved. I'm not saying that that the department as an institution conspired to kill Biggie. I'm not saying that at all. But there were definitely members of their serving police officers who were involved to a greater or lesser degree. And you can argue that through all the theories. We know that some of them were working for Death Row Records. We know that Death Row Records wanted him dead. And we can look at what's happened with that since, and with Suge Knight going to prison and all the crimes he's been convicted of, let alone the ones that people know that he committed that he hasn't been convicted of. So I think she was right to take the department to court for, I forget what the type of damages it was. I think the cases kept getting dismissed and she wouldn't be deterred. She carried on. I think that the biggest tragedy is that she's passed away, still not really having had the answer to definitively to who killed her son. But because all the P. Diddy stuff came out while she was still alive, I guess, yeah, and we are allegedly. Thank you for that. There's a lot of evidence. Very concrete evidence. We know that we not allegedly, we know those police officers did work for Death Row Records. That's a fact. So yeah, I think it's a shame. Wanted to give her a shout out tonight. Definitely a woman worthy of her own biopic, I reckon.
I think so. It will happen because when you have somebody with such determination and the kind of grit and endurance that she had, I think it's inevitable that someone somewhere is looking at these kind of people and thinking, this is just a mother seeking justice. This is a mother seeking the truth. This isn't necessary. Even if you take out all of the East Coast, West Coast stuff, if you take all of that out, this is just simply a mother trying to find justice and truth for her son.
Yeah, I'd agree. Interesting story in the bylines here. Couple forced to sit next to corpse on Qatar Airways flight for hours. Don't think I'd be very happy about that, would you?
Oh God,
I wouldn't be very happy about that. Let's have a quick look.
Yeah.
Is that the corpse then? The blurred bag there? What the? I mean, really?
God.
They were forced to sit next to a dead body for 4 hours with no option to change their seats. They were on a way from a flight, Australia to Venice, when a woman collapsed in the aisle next to them and died mid-flight.
Oh dear.
Right. Okay. I mean, that's a difficult one. What are you going to do?
Well, I suppose the easiest thing to do is would be to try and find somewhere else for her to go. I mean, I know it sounds horrible, but
because you can't put her in one of the toilets, because that in of itself would be disrespectful to the relatives of that person.
Yeah.
And at the same time, also causes other issues.
Hmm.
So yeah, it says here they just threw a blanket over the body. I don't know. I mean,
I shouldn't laugh.
I mean, it's just obviously the flight was full, I'm guessing.
Oh dear.
Yeah, Don't start laughing.
Oh,
Let's move. Let's
dear
move on.
me. Oh,
Let's
it's
move on.
terrible.
All right, let's get to the main
Get to
topic. Kathleen
the
Kennedy
meat of
was
the
supposed to save Star Wars.
cake.
Instead, she ruined it, because this is a topic we definitely can laugh about.
Hmm.
So TV shows, a bungled trilogy, countless films stuck in limbo. The outgoing head of Lucasfilm has turned Star Wars into a spent force. True or false, that statement?
I think it's absolutely true. Look, the problem that we have here is this, that unfortunately, all of the wrongdoings at Lucasfilm, as her being head of Lucasfilm, has completely obliterated every shred of decent work that she has performed on so many amazing pictures. And this is unfortunately what she's going to be remembered for, and that's a terrible shame. That's a terrible shame. I mean, I'm I have been quite scathing of her lack of ability. See, but the we don't actually know for certain whether everything that she has been doing has been under the guidance, or should I say orders, of Disney. We don't know that for certain. I'm sure that in time,
No,
this will all come out, and maybe she herself was, thinking, "Oh God, this is really taking things in the wrong direction." We don't really know that for certain. Um, but what we do know is that she doubled down just a little bit too often on the kind of the politicization, if you like, of adventure stories, of much loved fairy tales, for want of a better word. um these are things that mean something to people,
yeah.
and they do. Movies do mean things to people. They mean an awful lot. These are part of our culture, part of our childhood, and our growing up. And these movies, the Indiana Jones franchise and the Star Wars franchise, they genuinely meant something to me. They really and they still do. The unfortunate thing is that my cutoff point is I do have a cutoff point now, with both of those.
Mm.
Um, as I'm sure most people do, most former fans do. Um, and it's easy to gripe about everything that she's done since she's been head of Lucasfilm. She's made herself an easy target. Um, but it's difficult not to complain. It's difficult not to bemoan her being appointed as head of Lucasfilm.
Um, yeah, Dan Candy. I am also looking forward to Andor season 2. I think it was season 3 now, 2 or 3, I forget.
Two.
The new season.
Mm.
Yeah, I saw the trailer. Trailer looks good. Very much. It's a trailer that's very much distancing itself from other Star Wars products, because it's citing all the critical acclaim in quotes, and somebody put a post up about that, and I put in quotes, not the Acolyte. Or better than the Acolyte, which looks all right. So I think with my first comment to make about this is it definitely started going wrong with the new trilogy. That's where it went wrong. And if we look at that, I was amazed to discover quite early on, I think it was between films, this would be, the trilogy is 7, 8 and 9, isn't it? The new
Yeah.
trilogy. So between films 7 and 8 coming out, that there was no plan, there was no structure for these 3 films. They did the first one. They didn't have an arc, of a rough arc or whatever, and I just thought, this is nonsense. You're dealing with, I mean, okay, you've got to keep it flexible, but you've also got some new characters coming in. So at the very least, you can have your structured arcs for your new characters, your Dameron Poes and such like. and you can keep it flexible for your Princess Leias and your Han Solos in case any of the actors shuffle off their mortal coil. Let's lock down their plot for the movie we're doing now.
Yeah.
And let's think ahead. I mean, what I would have done is I would have worked out what the key scenes were with Skywalker, Princess Leia, and Han Solo for the whole trilogy, and I would have shot them first and got them out of the way.
Yeah.
So that they're all in the bag, so we don't have to worry about any kind of Carrie Fisher has passed away, so we're going to change the ending or whatever. We're going to do a reshoot. So I would have done that. But I mean, just as a common sense thing, if you're making a trilogy of movies, and you look at how Lord of the Rings was made, you sit down and you work out what the trilogy is. Because also, if you work out what the trilogy is, you're going to save yourself a lot of money, because you can start shooting bits and pieces for the entire trilogy in your first shoot, as well as getting your first film put together.
George Lucas did exactly that with episodes 1, 2, and 3. So it was planned. He knew what he wanted to do. There were certain changes along the way. More notably,
you're talking about the prequels.
The prequel series, yeah. I mean, at least he did plan them. He had them planned out, so they were outlined. But there's something very telling, and it was actually quite disturbing to watch. That's in one of the special features documentaries on The Force Awakens, and it's where we have, excuse me, it's where we have J.J. Abrams, and Lawrence Kasdan, and they're walking through the studio, and they're talking about some of the artwork that was produced, and it's the J.J. Abrams says something to the effect of, well, we just got this guy to do all this fantastic artwork and do go nuts on these different pieces of artwork, and we thought, we looked at them and thought, that looks good, that could actually make a really, really good scene. So what him and Lawrence Kasdan are doing is walking through the studio, just literally babbling into dictaphones, just doing voice messages on the script, making the thing up as they go along. And that's utterly ridiculous. That's well after the movie has been green lit, and whilst they're in pre-production. That's ridiculous, utterly ridiculous. How you can lock down, green light something without a script, without a locked script, without a locked cast, and without any kind of coherent pathway to your next two movies is beyond belief, utterly beyond belief.
Yeah, because I think, I mean, the three principles were always going to cost big bucks. I'm talking about Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher, and Mark Hamill. And rightly, they could have asked for parity in terms of their fees and things. But once you got that done, you're basically looking at a blank canvas. So even though I forget the name of the British actor who became massive as a result of the prequel series, black actor, I forget his name.
Crikey. He was
both having terrible brain farts now. I'm going to get the IMDb
he was
page
you're talking about the guy that used to be in Holby City.
No, not him. That's what's his name, who was in Aliens. No, I'm not talking about Frost. No, I'm talking about John Boyega. So
John Boyega. Sorry, I thought you said the prequel series, the prequel.
No.
Sorry.
Sequels. So sorry if I did. I meant the sequels. So you got your big bucks for your three principles. Then, I mean, if you look at the other cast, there's a lot of people there who are massive now, some of whom were on the precipice of being big at the time, like Gwendolyn Christie Andy
Yeah.
Serkis was already pretty big. Simon Pegg was already pretty big. John
Yeah.
Boyega was a virtual unknown, certainly internationally. Daisy Ridley was an unknown. Donald Gleeson was on the map, but he wasn't like A-list or anything. Lupita Nyong'o had just kind of done some stuff. But, you know, those roles could have been played by complete unknowns, you know, kids literally that just walked out of drama school.
Yes.
They could have been. Because it's Star Wars. And, I mean, none of us knew who Mark Hamill was when Star Wars came on. If you were a slightly older guy, you knew that you'd seen Harrison Ford in American Graffiti.
Yeah.
But, you know, we didn't know who Carrie Fisher was. It was the property that was that sold it. So I think they should have sat down and said, how can we make a trilogy, pay for our big stars that we need, and keep it on budget, not let it run away with itself, and make 3 great films. Let's look at how they shot Lord of the Rings. Because this is not that long afterwards. Let's look at the budget they spent there, and let's look at spending a kind of a similar amount of money. And you know, someone with Kathleen Kennedy's experience of working on film after film after film, including several extremely successful movies, we'll go through her CV in a second, had the wherewithal to sort of sit down and say, okay, I'm the captain of this ship, and the best way to do this is this would have been my approach. I think what she decided to do was, let's not commit to 3 films, because we might do one and it might be a financial disaster, and I don't want to be committed to doing more disasters. So I guess she figured it was better to risk on one movie. And I think the reason that she kept the playing field all open in terms of the plot was really just so she had an open hand to bring in whatever players were in flavor at the time. The choice of the second director was baffling to me. He'd done Looper, I think, which was okay. And then before that, he did Brick, which was a film about sort of teenage adolescents doing weird shit. That's not a guy who's ready to do a Star Wars film. And I just can't believe that he walked in to do the second movie and it was basically, hey, do what you want. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was truly a baffling decision to bring him on board. And you know, this is somebody that evidently knew nothing and cared nothing for any of these movies. You know, do your homework. Do your homework. Look at what you have. Treat this incredibly precious property with such care, because let's face it, I mean, entertainment, it's, you know, people either love or hate certain things, and franchises are very fragile things. So the fragility of Star Wars, you had to tread a very, very fine line to ensure that everybody that loves Star Wars, that loved these movies, was going to be happy with them, and you were going to pick other people up in the process, not wipe everybody else out and to hell with all the fans. We're going to make our new fans now. We're creating new fans. No, it doesn't work like that. It does not work like that. You have your huge fan base, and let's face it, it was absolutely vast, the fan base for Star Wars. Vast, beyond the wildest dreams of any owner of any intellectual property, beyond their wildest dreams. And, you know, it's placed in the hands of, for want of a better word, a complete buffoon. You've given a buffoon carte blanche to direct this movie, to write and direct this movie, and to do with it whatever he wanted. And he certainly did that.
Yeah, we're talking about Ryan Johnson for the benefit of those people watching, who was given carte blanche to do whatever with the second movie. The first movie was okay. I mean, I didn't like it was very much a reboot of Return of the Jedi in a way. And then, you know, hey, guess what? It's not going to be a Death Star. This time the whole planet's going to be a super weapon. And I just, you know, and it can fire it's can fire this weapon all the way across the galaxy. And I get why they destroyed, what's it called? Croissant or Croissant or whatever it's called. Croissant. We'll call it Croissant for fun.
Croissant, yeah.
Yeah, so when they destroy Croissant and the surrounding planets, and I get that they're basically removing what was the center of the Republic, destroying the order of the universe, so that the new order will have a chance of now dominating, etc. Okay, that kind of sets the slate clean for new adventures, a universe in chaos, etc., etc. I was okay with that. What I wasn't okay with was the big super weapon. I thought, we've seen the big super weapon. Can we not just have, like, you know, it's quite the idea of a hidden space fleet, which I think they took that directly from, that idea came from one of the prequels, one of the books, one of the trilogy books from Timothy Zahn, this kind of hidden space fleet.
Yes, it did. Yeah.
Yeah, and they said all of that world was no longer canon, which I thought was really stupid decision, because the people that wrote that stuff wrote it with very, very, very specific restrictions. So they had to really work within all the source material that was available. They couldn't kill off any major characters, things of that nature. They couldn't make the characters do anything they wouldn't have done in the movies, and so on. So all of that stuff was very, very in keeping with the existing lore. So there's loads of stuff there that they could have used. In fact, the stories of the Zahn trilogy was pretty good. Was better than what we got.
Way better. Way better.
Although I think in the third book they were building another Death Star, if I remember rightly. But you know, I just like this whole mentality of, it was like in one of the Star Trek reboots when they brought Khan back, played by Benedict Cabbage Patch. I just didn't want to see that. Why do a Khan reboot? Let's do something original. You know, do something with the Tholians. Do something we haven't seen in a Trek feature film before. You've got the Gorn. You could have had the Gorn and done them properly with really good CGI lizard creatures. You know, it's just so much stuff they could have done, rather than it's a Khan reboot. You know what the twist is? He's got a really big new ship. Oh, for fuck's sake. How many times the bigger spaceship rule, it fucking sucks every time. We've seen big spaceships now. It's much more interesting when the bad guy has a ship and the good guys have a ship, and they're pretty evenly matched, and actually it's all about tactics and stuff. That was what was great about the original Wrath of Khan movie. And I just think these are basic, fundamental storytelling blocks, and kind of filmmaking lessons that were not observed from day one. So for me, where it went wrong is it all goes back to The Force Awakens. And I think Drinker did a video about this today, and I'm pretty sure he mentioned it. You know, the big problem, let's get to where it started. The big problem was no plan. So we're talking 2015, Star Wars The Force Awakens. That was also the year that Pegasus Bridge went into production, and then 2017 was the year we got fucked. So quite funny, because I think of where I saw these films and when. So Force Awakens, no plan for the trilogy, big super weapon. I just don't feel that they sat down and thought, you know, what can we write here? Also, the villain in the new Star Wars trilogy, Adam Driver, great actor, really poorly written villain. Love him as an actor, but I thought his villain was just his arc, the story they gave him with this whole back and forth and all the stuff with him, and then Ray, who basically turns out to be nobody important. That's the big twist. Again, I just thought, really, you know.
It's I mean, you can tell. I mean, I was like most other people, was hopeful going into Force Awakens, disappointed coming out. But in terms of Last Jedi, for starters, I hated the title because I thought, oh God, no, I think I know,
Oh, we
you
lost
know,
your audio
we knew
inside there.
what was happening, what was going to happen. Oh, sorry. Am
Yeah,
I?
I go.
Can you hear me now?
You dropped out. You dropped out for a second, but I can hear you
Oh,
now.
oh, that's right. Okay. Um, yeah, and then we got the Last Jedi, and things, really went belly up. Uh, and why on earth this man? I mean, he could have done everything to have corrected some of the errors, that were made in the Force Awakens, and there were some massive errors. It didn't have to be it didn't have to be such a stripping down of everything that we love about Star Wars. Stripping everything off about that, and just giving us a pile of dung, really, to feast our eyes on. Um,
Yeah,
and But it does all start with Force Awakens, and it does start with the lack of a plan, the lack of coherence, the fact that people are green lighting a project, a trilogy, without any coherent storyline. George Lucas provided, as we all know, it's a matter of history now, I suppose, provided the three synopses for these three movies, which were instantly scrapped by Kathleen Kennedy because she wanted to take it in a different direction. Um, the thing is, George Lucas's outlines would have given it some kind of coherence and connection to everything that had gone before.
did you ever
Whereas
see those outlines?
I no, I didn't. I didn't. I've heard a little bit about them. There are some little bits and pieces that have been extracted and placed in the Force Awakens,
Mm.
but that really is about it. But it's, I mean, disappointing. I think is perhaps the understatement of the 21st century
Yeah,
in Star Wars.
I
It
think
promised so much but delivered nothing.
I think if the second and third film of the third trilogy,
Mm,
so films 8 and 9,
mm,
I think if 8 and 9 had built on everything set up here and really delivered some special storylines and arcs
mm.
without kind of nonsense chases through casinos and the
Yeah.
stupidest
Oh
chase in
God.
space in history with Admiral
Yeah.
Pinkhair or whatever her name was,
Mm,
with these cargo ships and all of that was just so not Star Wars. It was like
mm,
Battlestar Galactica. Um, but if this had been part of a cohesive narrative, I think we would have been more forgiving
yeah.
because it would have delivered us a story that we could believe exists in the Star Wars universe. I didn't. Han Solo getting killed was really. I think that happens. Doesn't that happen in the first one?
In the
Is
first
it the
one,
first?
yeah,
It is.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean that was a big kick in the goolies. I remember when it happened. I went, "Oh my god!" They just killed Han Solo, and it's his son that killed him. And I thought, "Wow, that's heavy, but that's also good. That's good writing." I thought, that's
yeah, yeah,
most people wouldn't have expected that. So there were things like that, but then the whole Daisy Ridley's character, the name of which Ray Palpatine, I suppose, is her surname,
yeah.
just didn't work really.
No,
Um, they made
no.
her really great at everything. She became incredibly skillful with the lightsaber way too soon.
Yeah.
Um, and she was already beating Kylo Ren sort of, fairly quickly, and he was pretty useless throughout.
Mm,
And then they teamed up at one point, and then they were enemies again. All of that back
yeah.
and forth was a load of crap.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, I do think that I mean, I don't want to be rude about the girl, but I think she was very much out of her depth in these movies, and it showed that she did appear to me to be quite a novice actress. I think she's perfectly fine and suited to television, um, uh, uh, but in terms of carrying a feature film, let alone a huge franchise like this, on her shoulders, with the caliber of acting that she delivers. And I'm sorry for being so rude about her. I really don't mean to be. But I just didn't buy her as a strong character. I just didn't buy her. I I was really disappointed at the way John Boyega was treated.
Yeah, so was
Uh,
I.
yeah, I mean, I know some people have got their opinions on John Boyega, and that's fine and dandy and all that kind of stuff. However, I, I think he's a very, very good actor. I think he's a
I think he's a
very
very good
underused.
actor. I think he's a
Yeah,
very good actor, and I thought they gave his character a good start, and then they didn't know what to do with him.
yeah. What on earth happened to him? What happened to his character? What a complete waste.
Yeah,
This guy was, for me, I thought he was the lead character. He should have been
yeah,
the lead character. This is somebody that had a real story arc. He was escaping. He had a conversion. He had a
yeah.
conversion in The Force Awakens, whereas Ray did not.
Are you going to
There
be
was
rushing to watch Die Hard with Daisy Ridley in it? Oh, sorry, it's called The Cleaner, but it's Die Hard.
uh, oh,
Directed by
can't
Martin
wait.
Campbell, who's the
Oh,
director of
right.
Casino
Oh,
Royale.
right. Okay. Yeah. See, the thing is about Martin Campbell is he's one of the greatest action directors, I think, since Don Siegel. I really do believe that. I think he's an amazingly talented and gifted action director. Um, yeah, I might watch this.
I mean, it's it's going to be interesting to see. It's got Taz Skylar, who's a young actor that I've met actually.
Hmm.
I mean, I'm guessing this is some kind of bank/restaurant heist. I'm guessing the building is supposed to be the what's it called? The big tall building in central London with all the restaurants in it.
Oh, the Shard and
The
is it the
Shard. I'm
Shard?
guessing
Yeah,
this is supposed to be the
yeah.
Shard. She's a cleaner. So her job is to clean the windows on the Shard, but she also happens to be ex Special Forces.
Hmm. Oh
So
God. Oh well, we know that
that's
that's never going to happen. So
so
the thing about
this.
Martin Campbell, excuse me, the thing about Martin Campbell when he directs, I mean, he's such a frenetic director. Um, if you see him on set, whenever he's directing anything, he literally just shouts action and go, 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 go all the time. He just keeps that energy up with everybody, and everyone's so invested in his form of directing. He's great. I love him. I love Martin Campbell.
Yeah.
So this could possibly be quite good, but with an unbelievable story. But this is
Well, let's have a quick look at the reviews on IMDb. Sorry, slightly side segueing off of Kathleen Kennedy's career here. There are 9 reviews. User Cleaner was not bad, 5 out of 10. Better than I expected, 7 out of 10. Female diehard, we know that, 7 out of 10. Clean stories, writing, and logic show potential for this movie, 7 out of 10. 1 out of 10, the drinker groans. Is that a reference to the critical drinker? I don't know. Cleaner 2025 is a lackluster action flick that features the useless Daisy Ridley and her talents on a tired, crap version of Die Hard. Okay, I mean, I get you don't like it. I don't know why this is put the drinker groans, because this is not the drinker and it's nothing to do with him, nor is there any drink referenced in there. But you got an 8 out of 10, a 9 out of 10. Maybe it's all right.
yeah, possibly. I just think it was a pity that that this poor girl had the weight of Star Wars on her shoulders, really, and it
Should we
was
have a
too
quick
much
look at
for
the
her.
trailer for this? You want
Yeah,
to see the
why not?
trailer?
Yeah.
Tell me if you can hear the audio, because I'm not sure if I've shared it from the right. Maybe she'll redeem herself and her career. Who knows?
Yeah. It's not sure whether that's going to be the one though, to do it.
I'm
But
not. Yeah, I'm not sure either.
yeah.
Let's go back
But
to Kathleen Kennedy. Sorry, yeah, you were
but
going to
yeah,
say
I
something.
mean, when you know, even if we take out the Star Wars trilogy, then we
Yeah.
had the spin-offs. So we had what was
We
going
had
to
Rogue
be
One. Rogue One.
we had Rogue One, we had Solo, which obviously absolutely tanked. We were going to have the Boba Fett movie, and we were going to have the Kenobi movie. So obviously, um, Kathleen Kennedy was overseeing Solo. So obviously, I mean, Rogue One was okay. It's the best of them. Unfortunately, the
I
best.
think Rogue One for me is the best of the new Star Wars.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. But I
Um,
I only I mean, this sounds awful, but I only really like it for about the last 15 minutes of the movie, and that's because we have that fantastic callback to A New Hope.
yeah,
Um,
it's the action scene with getting
mm,
through the shield and all of that,
mm,
and everything happening on the
yeah,
planet as well as above is
yeah,
fantastic.
yeah, yeah. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely the best one. And then obviously expectations were incredibly high for Solo. We didn't need an origin story. I mean, how he gets his name, etc., etc. Yes, pathetic, absolutely pathetic. Um, but we could have seen, a Solo story. A story about Han Solo.
Yeah,
But we
and
didn't.
a story about a young Solo would have been fine. In fact, the story could have been how Chewie and Solo met, but not the
Mm,
rest of his history.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
That
because
could have been the
we
opening
know.
scene.
Yeah, I mean, we know who he is. We know who this character is. We know that he's a smuggler and he's a bit of a rogue and a pirate and all that kind of stuff. We don't have to see how he becomes a smuggler, a rogue, and a pirate. We don't need to see all of that. We know what he is. Um, but of course, the real problem stemmed from the original movie. So around about 85% of the movie was shot. Um, and as
You're
is
talking about Solo.
yeah. So
Yeah.
and as we know, the two directors were fired by Kathleen Kennedy, even though she was overseeing everything. Everything had been overseen, but of course it didn't fit into what she wanted. Even though she was agreeing with everything and looking at rushes and
Well,
footage was coming
that,
back and
that strikes me as her feeling like she might have a turkey on her hands, so I'm
yeah,
going to fire them
yeah,
to
and then
make it
yeah,
known, that
yeah,
yeah,
and
it
then
wasn't my
bringing
fault.
in Ron Howard to pretty much reshoot almost the entire movie. That's absolutely bonkers. I mean, a doubled budget for a Star Wars movie, that's not a good thing. I mean, they're on a loss straight away. They've lost almost the entire budget immediately.
Mm.
Um, by having to go through the whole reshoot thing. Um, and it was almost an entire movie reshot, which is it's a tragedy, really. Would have liked to have seen the movie that would have been, but I don't think that's ever going to see the light of day. Um, and of course, it became the biggest, blandest Star Wars movie to date. I mean, how I never thought that you could possibly make a Star Wars movie, particularly about Han Solo, boring
Mm.
and completely uninteresting and
Well, I
unengaging.
mean, who sat around the table and said, "I know, we'll do a heist movie about a moving train on a planet."
Yeah,
Some production assistant must have put their hand up and said, "But this is the Star Wars universe. I mean, shouldn't it be a heist movie on the Imperial gambling ship of the galaxy, or
yeah,
what's with
yeah,
this train business?"
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
trains. We've got trains in the country, and there's trains in the US, and not many people use those now because we have cars.
mm,
This is Star Wars where cars fly. So
yeah,
why don't they just transport the thing off world and then land it again? in a different place on the planet. Just like, you know, the plot that they came up with to invalidate that reason was utter bullshit.
Yeah, it was truly terrible.
Yeah.
But and of course, after that bombed, then we know exactly how things were going to go. I mean, you know, the whole Mandalorian thing. I mean, Mandalorian season 1 was. I've still never seen it. I've never seen Mandalorian.
Mandalorian season 1 was okay. It had some good ideas,
Yeah.
and yeah, because I think we had our guy come in and you know, who was a Star Wars fan.
Yeah.
The guy who made the Swingers
Jon
movie,
Favreau.
Jon Favreau. Thank you.
Yeah.
And he came in and made Mandalorian, but yeah, first season of Mandalorian was all right, and what you wanted was it to get stronger and better, and that's not what happened. What happened was it kind of was okay. There was some good things, you'd get one good thing in the next season and 4 things that were terrible. I mean, seeing IG-88 properly employed in combat was one of the best things.
Yeah.
In the new TV shows from that certainly that I thought was good, and I thought, yeah, you know, we've all wanted to see that. We've all wanted to see like Bosk and those famous bounty hunters that we all saw lined up in Empire Strikes Back. We've all wanted to see them do something.
Absolutely, yeah.
But
it's funny you mentioned that, because this really kind of irritated me with what had gone before Mandalorian, and that was that there was a pool of characters, a pool of worlds, you know, a pool of plots that were already there within the Star Wars universe. And Kathleen Kennedy turns around and says, makes the utterly ludicrous statement and says, well, it's not like we have any books to base any of the stories on, is it? Come on. At that time, there was probably about 250 different books with different Star Wars stories that were all interconnected in some way or another.
Shape or form, yeah.
Yeah. And she claims that there was nothing upon nothing that they could base anything else within the Star Wars universe on. I mean, you've just effectively scrapped everything that you could have used. You utter nincompoop.
So we had Mandalorian, which, as I said, was okay, starting in 2019. So it was before Book of Boba Fett. And the first season, people had mixed views on it. Overall, I quite liked it. Thought, okay, this I can see this. You know, if this is got Jon Favreau at the helm, and there were reports that Favreau and Kennedy were having pretty ferocious debates, shall we say?
Oh, I thought you were going to say sex then.
No, they were having arguments over what, you know, the direction the show should go, the tone of the show, all that.
Yeah.
And I know he was trying to dig his heels in. He was trying to make it like Star Wars. We had the Book of Boba Fett, which was, I mean, that was not the Book of Boba Fett. This was basically Boba Fett, the Granddad Years. This was Little House on the Boba Fett. It was, it was, you know, it was not Boba Fett's story. He was a secondary character in his own show. The female sidekick was like basically the kick-ass lead.
Of
she got to do all the cool shit. You know, it was terrible. And then we had Kenobi. Great that McGregor was back. Kind of was excited that he was back. And I thought if they have any confrontation between Kenobi and Darth Vader in this show, it will ruin it. There can be some near misses, like I sense him and then he's gone. But no, they had to do it. They had to have them have a saber fight. And not only that, the saber fight, unless memory serves me incorrectly, took place on Tatooine. And like, you know, Vader discovered he was on Tatooine. And, you know, all of that would have been, you know, Tatooine then would have been searched for Luke, and Vader would have found him. He could have just bombed around on his TIE fighter waiting to sense him, because he knows he's there and he's not going to be that far away from where he found Kenobi. That whole plot was written by an imbecile. Actually, do you know what? Let's see who wrote Kenobi. So Kennedy was the creator, was Joby Harold. Okay, so I don't know if he wrote it, or let's just, to be fair, I don't want to start speaking ill of somebody. Okay, so we've got, okay, so he clearly was the person steering the ship, Joby Harold. You have Hossein Amini, who did story in several episodes, Stuart Beattie, I've heard of him, Hannah Friedman, who did 2 episodes, and Andrew Stanton, who I've also heard of. I'm just curious to see what Joby Harold had done before this. So he's got 8 credits as a writer, 16 as a producer. Let's just get on there. So prior to working on Kenobi, he was an exec producer on Chapter 3 of John Wick, an exec producer on the 2018 Robin Hood, which was a terrible film. Underground, I'm not familiar with that series. Okay, so I mean, he's done some things like Edge of Tomorrow and so on. But if he's the creator and he's the main writer, his writing credits, there's only 8. 6 of those are Obi-Wan Kenobi. So before Obi-Wan Kenobi, he did Army of the Dead and King Arthur: Legend of the Sword. Everybody hated the King Arthur movie. Army of the Dead, isn't that the one that was pretty terrible? It was a straight to Netflix release or something.
I've definitely not seen that.
Cheers, Darth. Good to see you. Awake, I think, was a sort of fairly interesting movie. I vaguely remember this, but that's in 2007. I just don't sort of see how you go from King Arthur to Army of the Dead to okay, you can be the main creator of a Star Wars show now.
There is, I would kind of stand up in defense of some of the writers of these shows, because
yeah, please do.
As it stands, and I'm not talking about the films, but as it stands with these TV shows, now these are, for the most part, younger writers, and they're
Andrew
brought in.
Stanton wrote Wall-E and is predominantly a writer at Pixar.
Really? Wow.
Yes, so he was a Pixar
pedigree.
writer.
Yeah, that's
and it did a lot of. I mean, okay, he did the screenplay for John Carter. I didn't hate that film, actually.
I rather like it. Yeah.
There's a lot about that movie I do like, even though I know it tanked. I saw it on a really big screen and at the Odeon Leicester Square. Hannah Friedman, she did 7 episodes of Willow. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
You see, I mean, the writers are only writing what they're told to write. You know, believe me, I mean, Disney will absolutely allow their dictatorship to filter down to Lucasfilm, who are then going to be dictating on behalf. You know, they're a proxy dictator,
Right?
And they're going to have to tell these writers what they want. You know, we want it like this. We want this. We want that. Give us some more of this and give us less of that. More of that, please. That's what it is. So it's the only way that you can defend the writers, because they are jobbing writers. They are people for hire. You know, they have to earn a living. You know, and for the most part, they are very, very talented writers. It's just that they have so many restraints placed upon them that they can't really flex their writing muscles correctly.
Yeah, because if you look at the credits that they've got between them, they've all done some pretty interesting stuff. Even Hannah Friedman, who was the least experienced, has got some good credits. So I think you're right to point out we can't. You know, somebody at Kennedy's level would have had the power to say yes or no. The story needs to go this direction. The story needs to be more like this.
That's right. It's I mean, she can veto absolutely anything, and she has. She has vetoed so much and had, you know, put things on what she considers to be a corrective course, you know, to comply with her sensibilities, let's say, and that's being kind.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised that Kenobi's got a 7 out of 10 rating, but then there'll be a lot of people that have just come on and given it a 10. like bots and so forth. 14% have just gone and given it a 10. Yeah,
I don't buy that at all.
Dan Candy says for $5, thanks buddy, by the way, for Boba Fett, I thought a Magnificent Seven style adventure with all the bounty hunters from Empire
Wouldn't that have been
cool.
great?
That would have been great.
Yeah,
that would have been great. I mean, it could have been, you could have, and do you know what, people would not have minded that it was the plot for Magnificent Seven, because it would have been Star Wars. And actually that was the plot that guy was going to write, and it ended up becoming Rebel Moon. Yeah, you know, with lots of wheat and so on. And there's more shots of wheat in the extended cut of that.
Wow.
Show.
Yeah. Look forward to seeing that.
Well, I'm live in 18 minutes on the Electric Goat channel, by the way. I'm going to be discussing a favorite board game of mine called Citadel.
Ooh.
So we're going to wrap this up in 10 minutes at the latest. I mean, I think the problem now is that we live in a different time where the people who are now, they might not be the heads of the studios, but they'll be in a lot of the key positions, will be people who are probably in their 30s. So these are not people who were alive when Star Wars came out. They've been shaped by different culture and time and impacted by things different from those of us who saw Star Wars in 77. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. But you need people who love the original 3 movies, understand them, get why they work, get what Star Wars is. There's nothing wrong with having strong female characters in Star Wars, but you know, they've got to, if you're going to have a young character who's going to end up becoming amazing at something, they've got to earn those credentials, or they've got to have a justified background that we find out about that makes us understand why they're amazing. Princess Leia could fire a gun, so we knew that she wasn't just a princess. She knew how to handle herself. She could fire a gun, but she was still physically small. You weren't going to put her in a fist fight with a you know, a Chewbacca creature or a monster. She was going to lose. So she wasn't infallible. She wasn't, you know, going to win every fight. But she had some strengths in addition to her weaknesses. And we got a handle on her very quickly in the first movie, you know, who she was, where she came from, and so on. It's not impossible for them to do these things again. I just think the nature of filmmaking and stuff has changed to such a degree, and it's also become politicized. It was all filmmaking has always been political, everything from casting to funding, and you know, all the shit that goes on behind the scenes about what gets made, what doesn't get made. The politics of that has always been there. But now we have agenda politics, different agendas of politics from before. I think before it was predominantly just about who could make the most money and get the biggest paycheck. That was all the main stuff that was going on behind the scenes. Now we have a lot of social messaging and this sort of thing. And that stuff is creeping in, and it's affecting the quality and the content of the writing, because people aren't thinking about what best serves the story. They're thinking about what best serves other factors. And sometimes those factors are being pushed on them from the powers that be above. I mean, Dan Candy made a great point earlier here, talking about great secondary characters in a show. Look at Shogun. Yeah. Really great show. That's fantastic writing. There's not a lot of action in that show, but it keeps you engaged. But I
But
do want more big battles in that show going forward.
if we start to examine, if we look at her, her, that's it's rude of me to refer to as her, but Kathleen Kennedy's back catalogue, if you like,
That's
she's
incredible back catalogue.
supremely qualified to become head of
Yeah,
Lucasfilm. Absolutely
yeah,
supremely qualified, with the quality of work that she's displayed from the beginning of her career all the way through to prior to through to the moment where she took over Lucasfilm or was appointed head of Lucasfilm. Everything was going wonderfully well, and then hubris kicks in, then ego kicks in, um, and I think when you have that kind of hubris from somebody, I mean, she was evidently, waiting to flex her muscles there, and being the new broom that swept clean,
yeah.
um, and she really did sweep clean. Um, I would have loved to have been there at that nose-to-nose face-off between Kathleen Kennedy and Marsha Lucas, uh, where Marsha Lucas was screaming hot spittle into her face and telling her that she's ruined all the good work that her and George had done.
When did
Um,
that? When did
I,
that happen? When did that?
that
When
was
was?
that was a few years ago. That was I think it may have been was it after the Last Jedi? Was it
Right.
after the Force Awakens? But yeah, she apparently
Probably after the Last Jedi, I would think.
yeah, and Marsha Lucas has gone on record on numerous occasions and said the only way that Star Wars could ever survive is to get, as she calls her, that woman out. Um,
Yeah,
you
because as
know,
you say, if you look at her early credits, I mean, associate producer and executive producer credits are not super hands-on.
mm,
But she was a producer of The Color Purple, The Money Pit, which is a
yeah,
very enjoyable film,
yeah.
Empire of the Sun, which was a
Sun,
very complex and
Goonies,
long shoot.
Inner Inner Space,
Yeah. Uh,
um,
um, but I'm looking more
Schindler's
at her
List.
producer credits
Yeah,
over her
okay.
EP credits, of which
All
she's got
right. Okay.
many, Back to the
Yeah.
Future, all of that. But, if you like Arachnophobia, she's a producer. And if she had a producer's credit, I imagine probably hands on.
Mm,
Always, these are all decent pictures.
mm,
Some people like Hook, some people didn't. Alive, absolutely fantastic film.
yeah. Yeah.
Jurassic Park,
Yeah.
could say that like Alan Partridge and Jurassic
Jurassic
Park.
Park.
Congo. Some people love that, some don't. Twister's a good film. The Sixth Sense. These are all
Yeah.
producers' credits on really good movies. Okay, you got Jurassic Park 3 there. We'll ignore that. But she's done a lot of good stuff. And even the weaker films, some people don't like War of the Worlds, some people don't like Signs, but they're not awful movies.
Mm,
There's still movies that are, those two films are still films that are loved by a lot of people. Some people don't like
mm,
them, but they're still a coherent film. They're a coherent story, whether
yeah.
you buy into it or
Yeah.
not, up to you. And then we have, of course, Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull. Now, she's only executive producer on that. We know that the mistakes on that were not down to her.
Yeah.
And by The Force Awakens, it's producer PGA. So she's earned enough credit. I mean, before that, she worked on Lincoln, Warhorse, and The Adventures of Tintin. 3 great movies in a row.
Mm,
I think you're right. A lot of hubris there. All
mm.
right, we're going to wrap it up there, guys, because Dan Candy says, "Wow, I've never heard of that story." Do you know what? That'd be a great basis for a play. I might look into that.
Mhm.
That whole confrontation between Marsha Lucas and Kathleen Kennedy.
Yeah.
Kennedy versus Lucas, you could call it.
Unfortunately, Marsha Lucas kind of lost a little bit because she was the one that burst into tears. But yeah, fair play to her. I'm at least she
Well,
did it.
I mean, burst into tears because she was upset.
Yeah.
Also, I think Kennedy had been around that family all her life, and
Yeah.
without George Lucas, she wouldn't have had the career she had.
Absolutely.
So I just don't understand why. I don't know. I mean, who knows what other things went on behind the scenes back in the day? Who knows? Could be all kinds of reasons. I'm not
Yeah.
going to say them on a live stream.
Yeah.
Why somebody might, want to
Might do
dismantle
somebody
a
else's
person's
bidding.
legacy.
Yeah.
To this degree. But anyway, all right. So I'm going to be jumping over to the Eclectic Goats channel now. I won't be on there too long, probably for about an hour. So we're going to be talking about board games over there. Myself and the Inside Man are going to be coming back on Sunday, assuming I'm not too hungover. In which case, if I am, we'll just put it back a week. But because I have a clubbing day on Saturday.
Ooh,
Dun,
nice.
dun, dun. Yeah, I'll be getting down and doing a bit of prancing and dancing around.
Yeah, be getting groovy with all those groovy cats, man.
Dude, I'll be getting this out. I'll be getting that electric whip out on the dance floor, mate.
You're going to say something else then? Oh, thank Christ for that.
Well, I just put the video on to qualify. What do you think I was saying?
Wait a minute. Wait a minute while I just whip this out.
No. So, but I'm going clubbing and going to Frantic Timeless on Saturday in London. It's a day rave, and I mean, look at the lineup for this. This is a day rave, and this is the kind of lineup you get at a day rave in London now. So I can't even fit them all on. So yeah, they've got 4 different rooms, all these different acts in each room, and going from midday right through till 9 o'clock. So it's going to be pretty interesting. I'll be running around from room to room trying to catch various different people. So that's always the entertaining bit. You're like, which room is this? Where am I now? Because it is a bit of a maze. Ministry of Sound. But yeah, we'll be back doing on Tebby on Sunday. In theory, that should be at 8 o'clock. It will definitely be on 8 o'clock on a Sunday whenever it happens. But in theory, it will be this Sunday. And we'll be going through all 4 movies that have covered that topic. So all right. But I better get off because I've got to get on the other channel. I don't want to be late. So thanks very much to the Inside Man for coming on this very spontaneous last-minute stream that we decided to do.
Absolute pleasure as always.
My condolences to the Wallace family for the passing of Voletta. Never met her in person, but seemed like a wonderful and determined woman. And, I think the world is probably a sadder place without her. We could do with more people like her and less P. Diddy's, in my opinion. But there we are.
Yeah.
What do I know? So that's it from us. Catch us again on Sunday at 10. Until then. Today